bad.
But that's literally not what the show is, though.
No,
it's Catholic
no.
Plebs and also audio plebs.
Yeah. Audio plebs now too. So all around.
Yeah, just all around plebs, actually.
Plebs.
Plus. All right, well, why don't we get started with a quick prayer, and then we can get into it.
All right, sounds good.
Well, welcome everybody to the Catholic Plebs podcast. We have a guest here with me today. His name is Garrison, and I'm happy to introduce you and share one of my friends with you guys. He has kind of a unique aspect to the Catholic faith, one that I think is very much so needed. But Garrison actually works in the arts industry, which is going to be very fun to pick his brain and see what he thinks. But yeah, why don't you say hello and introduce yourself a little bit.
Hey everybody, I'm Garrison, as Jonathan had introduced. I am in the arts. I'm an audio engineer by trade, and that is from designing systems to operating concerts to working in film and video as far as on-site location recording, post-production. So anything that involves a speaker and microphone, you can count me in on that kind of operation and anything in between. So it's been really cool. And yeah, recently the arts involved with Catholic faith have been something that's been near and dear to me, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So one question I just have for you is, like, we all once were little amoebas, and we grew up and started having to think our own thoughts. So what really got you into, your Catholic faith, and also got you into audio engineering? Because, everybody has to decide at some point kind of what they want to start committing their life towards. So I want to hear your thoughts on that.
For my Catholic faith, I grew up Catholic, didn't really have much of a devotion to it. It was something as a family we would be able to do together.
Yeah.
Minimal dinner prayers, going to church. As my dad said, every Sunday when my brother and I said, do we have to go to church? And he says, you get to go to church. People don't get to go, and you get to go.
That's awesome.
And of course, you can't say no to that. And begrudgingly, we went. So, and we were voluntold to be able to be altar servers and help decorate the church.
That's interesting.
It was. And getting my long hair in my teen phase.
So that's when it came.
Yes. Wearing the white robe and being up on altar, I got a lot of comments of, hey, Jesus is up on the altar.
Oh, that's funny.
So that started early on. But my devotion came right after I had a breakup and a relationship. It was a 3-year relationship. I was definitely madly in love with this woman. And the end of the relationship was about a month of really tough conversations, and what it came down to was that I told her I don't think I would ever be at her level of faith practice that I was at that point. And that time in my life, I was interested in faith, not really pursuing it. She is a Lutheran, and she was having Jesus as number one in her life, and I respected that, but I never really pursued that with her. I would go to church when she invited, talk about Bible, talk about prayer, but it wasn't something that I was going to pursue on my own. It was like, I'll get to it eventually when I have time. And as I found out, I don't have time in life because I am involved in too many things. So
yeah.
Essentially, it was something that I put at a lower priority and never really took the own time to do it. So after that relationship ended, I took a view of why my life was different from hers, and it came down to faith. So beginning in 2019, I called one of my best friends from high school who plays drums at a large parish here in St. Louis. And he invited me to go to church with him and sit with his in-laws. And from there, I got to be introduced to Jesus, the ever-loving Jesus, the true meaning of what love is. And
well, that's super interesting. Okay, so like 2019.
Yeah, 5
that's
years ago.
Not that long ago.
No. Overall, I would say I'm a toddler. Maybe a tween at this point.
A tween?
In my faith journey. Maybe a tween. 5 years ago. And the young adult Catholic community here in St. Louis is absolutely amazing. Complete gem. And I really dove into my faith with this community. It was a blessing because of seeing other young adults both younger than me, at my age, and older than me take their faith seriously. And when I grew up, anybody that was around my age that took their faith seriously was weird and awkward. And I said, I will never be one of those people.
That's funny. Funny you say that. I don't think you're the only person who's had that thought.
Yeah, and I experienced it too from those people.
Yeah.
So I said to myself, I am never going to be one of those.
Yeah.
Come to find out, some years later, I'm starting ministries and leading different things, and I am definitely 100% of that weird, awkward, but in a good way.
Yeah, it's not socially awkward.
No.
It's just weird, as in like keep it weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
For this society, it's definitely weird. We're the odd ones out now in this society.
That's
being
actually
Catholics.
that's a very good point. Like a lot of people talk about this, but we're definitely no longer a Christian nation. We're very post-Christian. Yeah, actually, funny enough, I was watching Batman the animated series, and there was an episode where it features a priest, and his whole thing is he's the only one that can save this mobster who's going down like this really bad path at the end of his life, and it ends with the priest being the star of the show, saving it. And then Batman smiles as church bells go off in the distance. Like, wow, our culture has gone so far. That was not that long ago.
No, not at all.
And then another friend got me into X-Men the animated series, I think like 80s version. And there are several episodes where one of the X-Men is actually a religious brother. And he's always talking about God and faith, and he actually ends up like getting one of the X-Men like to practice his faith again. It's like, man,
wow,
that is wildly different than the culture that I live in now.
Yeah. And it didn't seem that polarized growing up, but in a very rural community, I didn't know too much. We weren't exposed too much. I didn't have as much world culture that I have now and exposure to now.
Yeah, that's a big question that we'll get into with you and your area of expertise.
Yeah, so
but before we move on though, just want to keep focus. You said that like you had a friend who brought you invited you to mass, and that was actually different than the other times. You get to experience Jesus in some like very personal way.
Yeah, the first time coming back to mass was for myself.
Oh, coming back, so you had been away for a little bit.
Yeah, after high school and going to college, I didn't go to church by myself. Only went to church in mass whenever I visited my parents and visited family. So
got you. So did you go to college somewhere different than your hometown?
Yes.
Okay, which is not too uncommon.
Yeah. It wasn't too far away, but the circles I was around weren't anybody that was practicing any faith. Not bad people. It was just
just the
different
culture.
Yeah. And I didn't have too much exposure. Every once in a while, maybe a friend or two would invite me. I'm like, Sundays are for sleeping until 2 p.m. on college weekends. So that was my excuse for not going to mass in the morning, even though there was definitely evening masses for students.
Yeah.
But yes, going back to my friend, he invited me to mass, and that was the first time I'd gone on my own accord, in the sense of I'm pursuing this adventure on my own versus somebody inviting me.
Okay, so it's a little bit different of a scenario. It's not just like you've been going to mass, he invites you to mass, and just like you just have this experience. It's actually, okay, like my relationship fell apart.
Yeah.
I want to see what's going on, and I want to investigate this faith thing.
Yes.
So you're approaching the mass with a new type of heart than you previously were, because beforehand, like you said,
no heart,
no heart. You're
not at all.
Well, you're not alone. I mean, I actually said something similar, and I was actually very shocked how my dad reacted very passionately. I was like, oh, I thought we all understood. It's like eating your vegetables. You have to go to mass on your weekends, and then it's like it's something you need to do, not something you want to do, which is different, of course, today, but.
Yeah, it was a lot like that of you need to do because your family said so, and if you stayed home, you didn't get donuts and brunch in high school. So who wants to miss out on that kind of opportunity?
Oh, man.
So of course going, but yeah, first time going back to mass for my own accord, and it was a completely different experience. But my friend had told me, and him and his family are very devout Catholics, and his father-in-law took me underneath his wing as spiritual advisor. So about every Sunday evening, he would have me over, and we'd talk about the faith. He'd give me, my friend's father-in-law, talk about the faith, refresh me on things, teach me things. So it was about like a month and a half of that.
So you get a little catechesis too.
Very much so. Things that I missed out on whenever I was not paying attention most of the time.
Well, okay. So for like growing up in 2000s, like late 90s, 2000s, I don't remember really ever getting a good catechesis. So I feel like that was definitely one underpinning of our generation where there's a thirst to understand like what is it that you guys are saying, because for me the message was just like, Jesus loves you, which is true and it's good, but then when you have people who seem to have more eloquent arguments of like why God doesn't exist, it's like, well, now I feel like I'm lacking something substantial. It's just like some kind of hokey pokey kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what it felt like at times watching
Yeah.
other people. Like, what's this magic behind the scenes that I do
Yeah.
not get and not pursuing?
Okay, so you got both like an experience of faith,
Yeah,
and then you got some catechesis.
Catechesis, and then he had said, both him and my friend had given me a direction of not receiving communion when I first came back because I hadn't been to confession and in a long time, probably since my first confession. Back in whenever that is.
Yeah.
A 7th, 8th grade, whenever that is. So I didn't realize what confession really meant either, and the sacrament of reconciliation. So in that about a month and a half, educated me on what reconciliation really is, and thankfully the Review, which is a magazine published once a month here, had released an article of how to go through the steps of confession right around the time, God moment right there.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Right around the time we were talking about it. So read that article, highlighted a bunch of things, and we went through like a practice confession at his house. Obviously not confessing my sins to a lay person, but just role-playing in a little bit of what it would be like. So he took me to the parish, had confession, and afterwards he's like, how do you feel? I don't really feel too much different. Maybe a little bit of weight lifted, but like not this ever-changing moment that was like life-altering by any means.
Yeah.
Like, great, we're going to celebrate. And I was like, we're going to celebrate my sins? He's like, no. Celebrate your reconciliation where now you've given up your sins. So then we went out to eat. And then that was a Saturday afternoon. The next day on Sunday, went to morning mass and received communion. And that was when my journey went from, I'm going to check out this faith thing because I thought that I might be able to get this relationship back that I had, that had been ended for me. It changed from that to being, this is going to be a life commitment, because after I received communion, got back to my pew, and I just completely lost it. In a really good sense where I was crying a sobbing, snotty mess. I had my head buried into my arms. And what happened was, as soon as I got back to my pew after receiving communion, it was the first understanding of what true love really is.
Oh, man.
And like right now, I'm getting a little choked up just thinking about this, but I felt this warm feeling in my heart. And it just slowly went from my heart to my hands, to my legs, to my toes. Like I could feel the tips of my hair in this feeling of love, and it was the essence of what home really means. Jesus was calling me back home. Like, you're home now. You were with me.
Oh, man.
And I tell people, it's like if you're on a winter's day at home, you're sitting by your fireplace with a Snuggie, reading reading a nice book next to a fire, reading and having your favorite warm drink.
Yeah.
Just that comforting feeling. It's a million times better than that, and it's a million times better than receiving a hug from your dearest love, from your friends, from your family. Like, those feel good, and those are centering, but this was beyond that, and really what the true meaning of home and what love is entered me at that point. And after that, I said, well, this is going to be a life commitment. I cannot turn around from this. This is going to be now something that I pursue. Not necessarily the feeling, but knowing that this is home and this is truth. This is beauty. This is love. So from there, it's like, all right, well, I can't say no to this anymore. So where do I start? And that became the start of my faith journey.
That's awesome. So, and are you still going to college at that point in time?
No, that was 2 years after graduation.
Okay.
After
All right.
graduating.
So I assume you're now in St. Louis at that point in time in 2019.
Yeah, that would have been 5 years into being a new resident in St. Louis.
Okay, so then you had a beautiful community to fall into after that. Just like pick your parish.
Yeah, thankfully, the parish that my friend was playing drums at was one of the biggest parishes in town. So had amazing parish life, families, young adults, youth, anything that you want to do within the parish. They had a club or community, some kind of support for it. So it was thriving in so many ways, and to
That's
have
awesome.
that as my first parish to start my faith journey was a big blessing.
Yeah, so it's nice because it's nice not to just get like, oh man, like finally I'm back home. You know, that's one aspect of it. But then you fall into your church, and it's like, what's receiving you?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, very
like,
much so.
What can you do there? Like, what are they doing?
Yeah, and that's when I discovered the young adult community. First, starting off
Yeah.
at that parish, and then finding how big it is in St. Louis, and the gems, and the commitment to the faith that a ton of young adults have here. That is just
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, you just got done with a particular event that was pretty cool
It
not
was
too long ago.
Yeah. Do we want to dive into that?
We
or-
will. We could just take a little bit of. Well, we're gonna pause because I asked you two questions. That was one. I wanted to know what got you into your faith, and then also audio engineering because like this is not a particular field that I find most people going into as Catholics. I find like you typically have just anything that's not arts.
Yes.
So talk to us about your journey onto like really wanting to be a part of the arts industry.
Yeah, that started back in fourth grade when I started playing the clarinet in bands.
Fourth grade.
Fourth grade.
Man.
Yeah. Bowl hair cut me with a clarinet, looking super awkward and nerdy. Yeah, that's where the whole audio engineering story started. So from there, I learned how to play guitar with my uncles.
Mm-hmm.
And about midway through high school, realized I'm not going to be a talented musician. I was always last chair in concert band, and among my friends that we played in a rock band, I was always not the best. I didn't sing well. I couldn't play well. I enjoyed it all. I enjoyed music, and music to me was this gift. At that time, it was a gift in life. Now, it's a gift from God. But at that point, it was a gift in life that I was able to relate to. I was able to feel energy. I was able to connect with people. Music is a way to be able to connect with people in the sad, in the happy, in the excited moments.
I was actually just thinking. This is a little off topic, so I apologize. But I was just thinking about how it's interesting that when we want to communicate, we can't just give people our ideas, but we have to use some sort of means or medium to communicate those ideas. So, like, if you want to communicate through writing, you specifically have to do something that you use for your senses, for your eyes to pick up. Or if you want to do braille so that somebody can touch that can't see, or you can do audio, but you have to use there's a disconnect between us where it's like I can't just let you know my ideas. I have to do something that then you can interpret and try and interpret what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Which is what music is.
Very much so.
Yeah.
For somebody that may see a very down-tempo song as far as chill and relaxed, another person may see as somebody just trying to share with somebody that they're in a low moment of life, whether that is a sadness, a depression, or somebody could see, hey, that's just elevator music. Like, it could be one thing or another, but the interpretation to be able to receive that in the way that you need at that time is amazing that our art and music can do that. So going back, I realized I was going to be a failed musician. And that's kind of joke in the audio world that a bunch of us audio engineers are failed musicians. Joking, but not joking. That's kind of how a majority of us got into the industry.
There was a passion, but you couldn't realize it through just the talent of playing a particular instrument. Or doing
Absolutely not. No. Talent? No. Not on the instrument by any means. No. It was not there. So one of the uncles that taught me guitar gave me some of his old audio equipment from his band days. So I was able to have my first set of speakers and mixer and played around with that, a few microphones. And then in college, I helped co-found a group for student musicians to be able to have shows on Canvas, be able to create bands, record, basically center focus point for community for students. And our first show we got the equipment out, and then we got the mixer out, and everybody's like, all right, who knows how to operate this? And we look around, and I was like, well, I kind of know how to operate a guitar amp, so I guess I'm going to be operating the mixer. So then it started my journey of becoming an audio engineer, and then did other shows, worked for production companies, and then found myself really enjoying behind the scenes and allowing this moment in time for live music to be able to be created. And then through that, learned about a school in St. Louis that focused in audio production. Moved to St. Louis, went through that, and then realized my true talent is behind the scenes, allowing musicians to be able to not have to worry about technology and just focus on their God-given talent, to be able to then help make that connection in that moment with the audience, whether that is a blues concert or a heavy metal concert, a folk concert, or even just somebody, a speaker, a presentation, something like that.
Yeah.
Just to be able to remove the technology elements, that way that presenter, that talent can just focus on why they're there, whether that's music performance or a motivational speech or informational speech. So, plus, I'm a nerd at heart. I love engineering, so being able to work with equipment and get nerdy with it is a very much blend of this music passion with this engineering background. It combines it to be both in audio engineering. So, it's been a journey. Had a lot of amazing experiences, and
You actually, most people say that. You actually do. You have so many crazy stories.
yeah, and that's part of it too. Being in this industry on the behind the scenes has led to a lot of amazing experiences that I thank God for. Because otherwise, I don't think I'd ever have any introduction to any of the experiences and people that I've met.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, when you were then realizing this call, you had this passion. Did you ever think once, or did you ever? Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go with that. Did you ever think that, like, okay, I'm not in the best industry. I need to change my field because this is not. You get to hang around some questionable characters.
Yeah, I started schooling in engineering, traditional engineering, and thought I was going to probably be going to Chicago for some traditional job, mechanical, electrical, something like that. And in that industry, fairly high paying and stable. And moving to audio engineering, which is kind of the opposite, sometimes very unstable and not very high paying.
Yeah.
Of course, there were some worries about that. And then going with the different kind of personalities, the rock and roll star life that I'm around some of these artists and musicians of sex, drugs, rock and roll. It was definitely a moment of knowing where my personality is in addition to what I stand for, because I was offered drugs many times, multiple gigs. Given my long hair and beard look too, where they would probably just assume I am also giving the drugs, which they were always questionable. Like, no, you got some. I'm like, dude, I don't. Like, I am completely clean. Like, no way.
Yeah, I got
not
that.
you. You can't be an audio engineer or roadie in this music world and not do drugs. I'm like, I don't do drugs. And so, yes,
I do the chocolate, but not the drugs.
I will get so drunk on chocolate. But there was multiple times of being around definitely some sketchy personalities and situations. But there was something internally that always just kept me in a good place, that didn't want to partake and just kind of take the upper road and go against the grain. And yeah, there were some times where I was put off and kind of separated from the group because of that. But as time has gone on through the audio industry, it has gone from a profession of you're one with a band where you do have sex, drugs, rock and roll, to now there's audio engineers that are professional, that know their gear, know the tech, know the industry, and are taking it seriously and are not doing drugs. They're not staying up late partying. They're taking what they did to get into the industry seriously. So I've kind of gone with that path too. And I still definitely get offered multiple drugs and situations quite often, but I choose not to stay above that influence.
Okay. Yeah. That's a weird experience that I just didn't think that I'd have in my life. But I've totally also been I can't speak, offered drugs in college. And I was like, yeah, that's weird. I never thought I'd have to say no. But yeah, no, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially at concerts and festivals when I go to those as an attendee and not working. Given my luck, again, it's always a assumption that I have things to share. but I definitely do not.
Yeah. Yeah, you do have that look about you with the beard and the long hair.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. But as far as just like your industry, did you ever see that as like a threat, or your passion for the arts as a threat to your Catholicism or your faith?
When I first entered the industry, I wasn't practicing, so there wasn't
Yeah,
that
there wasn't
conflict.
that, yeah.
But nowadays, no, it's actually the opposite. The industry has a lot of people that don't know Christ. And if they do know, it's very repulsive, or like, no, that's not for me, whatever. I respect other people, but it's not for me. It's a moment to actually be the shining beacon in a group that doesn't have anybody at all to evangelize to them.
Yeah.
And doing it in a proper, respectful way has been a journey to realize that too, and just being able to relate and meet people where they're at. So I know some other friends, they definitely do have a hard time where they're more succumb to peer pressure.
Yeah.
I think God's given me a gift to be able to stand above that and say no and not give in to peer pressure, but also be that point of evangelization for people to question, why does he choose not to do these things, and be able to share my faith. I usually have a necklace that has a cross on it.
Yeah.
I don't today because it's full of sweat from last weekend, but it's actually something that I really treasure, is being in that industry,
Yeah.
to be able to be evangelization to those people that otherwise are not able to have any exposure to Christ.
You know, that's I was really hoping that'd be the answer. It'd be very awkward if it wasn't. Yeah, but I was just reading the Gospel of Mark today, and Jesus goes across the sea, and he goes to, I think it's like Gennesaret. I can't remember exactly, but the demoniac comes out of the tombs and he meets him, and it's very. There's so many things to say about it, but there's only one thing I'm going to say about it now. That's at the end, the person who is then now no longer having these demons possessing him asks to go with Jesus. And Jesus actually denies him and says, no, go back to your own place and preach the good things that have been done for you. So I think that's actually, that's kind of like the layman's call to evangelization. It's like, okay, we can't be monks, we can't be friars, and we can't just have perpetual adoration and pray. Like, we have to go back to where we come from and like be the light of Christ. And I've heard it, but also I've seen it a lot in like this the current job that I have right now, where there's a lot of questions because nobody knows what Catholicism is, like especially like Christianity kind of, but especially like what Catholics believe, and people are like, hey, what do you think of this or that? And so there's a lot of there are actually a lot of conversations that revolve around religion. And so I see a lot of just, hey, if I wasn't here in this particular field, this person would just never get an explanation, because it's not like they're gonna go on YouTube.
No.
And they're not gonna look up Father Mike Schmitz.
No.
Yeah, so it's like we actually get to be the hands and feet, but you have to be comfortable with your faith.
Yes.
You have to know your faith well enough, and then you have to be available to explain it and not just kind of like walk away or shy away from the conversation, which like I've regrettably done before. I mean, and at least like 2 occasions, not within my job that I have now, but in previous jobs where I just walked away. And I was just like, oh, I'm not gonna enter this conversation. I'm too afraid to speak about religion in my job. So.
I'm sure all of us have too. You know, there's probably a few of us that haven't done that and have always taken that opportunity to be able to talk and evangelize. But I've learned recently that just meeting people where they're at. So I'm a metalhead, so the metal shows that I'm, in mosh pit. In the middle of mosh pit's not a time to be able to stop and say, "Have you heard the good news of Jesus?" One, I don't think people are going to actually hear me because it's so loud. But 2, they're moshing. Not going to happen.
I mean, okay. So first off, I only know this because you told me what a mosh pit is. But can you explain what a mosh pit is?
A mosh pit is one of the most fun circles of death you can ever be part of. There are multiple types of mosh pits, but for the metal community, the punk community, it's a circle where audience members are going around in a circle, usually a little bit of pushing, a little bit of shoving, but it's not with the intention of hurting. It's more of like roughhousing. And in a true metal community, punk community, if anybody falls to the ground, the people around them are going to stop, put their arms out to protect that person, allow them to get them back up, pull them back up, make sure they're all good, and then throw them back into the pit. So it's just a little, it's like, are you good? You got your glasses? Everything fine? All right, you're back into the pit. So it's a fun time to be able to roughhouse, and given the high energy of metal music and punk music, it's just an outlet to be able to express that connection with that community. Yes, it's not for the faint of heart, and yes, for those that are more delicate, I would definitely not recommend it. But being able to be shoved around a little bit on your own, without your own control, is kind of fun. So I definitely recommend it. Do not wear sandals. Do not wear soft toe shoed. Protect your feet at all costs. But so yeah, it's a fun time. But yeah, anyway, so in those shows, I find it sometimes ironic where some of the bands are doing what look like satanic worship. They have the different symbols that are Satan worshiping symbols or things like that.
Yeah.
Most of it's just for play, just for stage presence, and it's a time where I can be able to talk about that with those attendees. Like, hey, they're doing this thing, they're making fun of the Pope, they're seeming like anti-Pope, whatever the band is doing, but it's like, actually, an upside-down cross is not the meaning of the devil. It's a certain saint. And then I'll go into that, and then they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. And then now we've got open conversation. But the only reason I got to that because I was at the same show with them, enjoying the music with them, being part of the same community.
Yeah.
You can't just go up to somebody that is in that and just talk to them. You got to first relate, meet them where they're at. And that's the most important thing I've been learning this past few years to be able to evangelize, is meeting people where they're at.
Yeah, no, that's important. That's a very important thing. I definitely have not mastered that art. So what would you say if someone was like, well, how do you make sure you don't get tied up in the world? That's something that could easily happen.
Very much so.
Yeah.
There is a lot that I've learned in my faith, and our ways of receiving love. There's the 5 love languages, and if you don't know what those are, I highly recommend looking them up.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like Russian, Spanish.
Yeah, all these different languages that people use to communicate. There is that. No, and I always forget one, but I'm going to try to remember all 5. Physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time,
acts of service,
and gifts. And I thought I heard there's a few more, but those are the main 5. So everybody likes to is born with a certain degree of receiving and giving in those. So I found that once you can be able to realize your own, apply that to the faith. So like an adoration, that's quality time when you're with Jesus. Physical touch, you're receiving the body and blood in Christ through communion. Gifts, well, there's a lot of gifts that you can be able to receive in your faith, whether that is communion, whether that's community, whatever it is. There are multiple ways to be able to have these examples in your faith life.
Yeah.
So when you know yourself, you can be able to relate to others in that way, but also you can relate to Christ too. So you can be able to constantly receive and give love from Christ in those love languages.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And then that centers you to be able to be fulfilled in both the giving and receiving of yourself. So from there, I've learned mine, and then I'm able to have those in my community and my faith practice. And that centers me then when I'm outside of a faith community to be able to know then how I can be centered. But then also from there, be able to be educated in my faith. So then the times I am confronted or I am questioned, I can be able to do that. But also be knowing that if I don't have all the answers, I have a ton of resources to be able to look with.
Yeah.
Podcasts, Catholic Answers, websites, my friends, priests, different talks, all kinds of resources to be able to educate myself on. But when it comes down to it, and if there are situations in my life, in my gigs, out in the community that are confronting, I just take a little bit of time to pray to be able to say, all right, God.
That's a very good thing to do.
Please guide me in these next words I'm about to say, this interaction, if I'm questionable. And usually it's like, Jesus, take the wheel, kind of go on autopilot for a little bit, and then kind of come back into myself and be like, I was there for whatever just happened in that conversation, those actions, but the Holy Spirit was definitely leading me. So just a little bit of time, even if it's like 5 seconds, to slow down, to pray a little bit. And you don't have to make a big scene out of it. You can just internally take a pause and then continue with whatever it is from there.
Yeah.
That's really helped in being centered. And when there's times of conflict, times of pressure.
All right, so I almost forgot to circle back to something that we mentioned previously, with maybe some help from somebody. But you were doing something pretty interesting and cool within the Catholic community. So, unlike most of us, where we just complain, some of us, like you, actually like to get involved and bring something to the community. So, talk to us about the event that you recently were in charge of helping getting set up and run.
Yeah, so it all started 2022. One of my friends had the idea of putting on a Catholic art festival. She and her husband are singer-songwriters, and they get invited to play at art festivals and also just attending art festivals. Had a great time with them, but found out that kind of looked around and said, we don't really have anything like that for the Catholic community. Now there's arts and crafts fairs at parishes, kind of just catered toward and focused towards that parish, not really beyond that.
Yeah.
Those exist, but there's not something for the overall archdiocese. So she said that, and I was already thinking of doing that on my own house, not Catholic focused, but like all my friends having
Yeah.
shows in my backyard. People bring art to be able to show and sell, and just celebration of people. I am almost calling it the celebration of you, where it's celebrating people's art. So I already had this idea in mind. I was going to do it on
Okay.
my own. And then my friend said, well, I'm planning on doing this if you want to come with and be part of the
Hey.
planning team and Catholic Art Festival. And I said,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've already got the idea in my head for my own, so why not help with that? So a meeting of 20 people then dwindled down to 3 or 4 people.
Attrition that happens sometimes.
Yeah, nobody's ever experienced that before on group projects where then, there's very few that do the work. But the 4 people then became our co-founding team and our planning team. So in 2022, we decided we're going to make this thing real. And in September of 2022, we had our first annual Catholic Art Festival. In St. Louis, we had 20 artists that applied to have a booth to be able to sell their artwork. And then I was the entertainment manager, so I managed the stage, the entertainment, and I was the audio guy for the sound. In addition to that, we had some yard games, and then we got a great response from the community saying this is something that looks great. The parish that hosted us was able to provide us resources, so we didn't have much money for our starting. And everybody involved in the planning was very much committed to making this happen because it was a gap in our community that we very much saw was needed.
Well, yeah, it's not even just a community. I think like what our culture is missing is actually a revival of arts and good Catholic art.
Yeah. Unfortunately, for the life of me, I cannot remember our mission statement correctly every time. So what I am going to say is that we are focused, and our mission is providing beauty of art to be able to inspire those to be able to pursue faith. Whether that is you are lukewarm for faith and to get you on fire, or you're on the outside and you're questioning, or maybe this is the time to question when you see the beauty of art to lead you to God. So we've got amazing, talented artists that are in kind of silos in the area, and we wanted to bring them together to know, like, hey, there are others like you in this same community to be able to work with each other, collaborate. And then those that are pursuing it as a profession, allow them to have the exposure.
Just provide a livelihood for themselves.
Yes,
so
exactly.
We can have good Catholic art.
Yes.
Because they need to be able to sell it if we want it.
Yes. Those that are artists and those that appreciate art, yes, it may be more costly than going to Walmart and buying that band poster, that thing that's been printed a million times over again.
Yeah.
But if you take the time and you take the money to be able to give handcrafted art, painted art that is originals, you are supporting not only the beauty of God, but you're supporting those artists too.
Yeah.
And to me, without those artists and those musicians, I wouldn't be an audio engineer. Like, my job does not exist without the art itself.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give back to the community, to the young adult community, because of the blessings I've been able to receive. I want to give that tenfold. But then also how big I am to art and music. I wanted to make sure to get a platform for my fellow parishioners, for my fellow Catholics to be able to have exposure, relate to each other, create community, and then allow those talents to be seen by others.
And what was also like really surprising is I actually attended the festival this year, and it was really cool just to talk to the people at the booths and just to get to learn about them because they were very, very interesting. And I was like, oh man, new friend. Oh man, another new friend. And and the diversity of the art and the diversity of the people that were there, it was very cool. Like I thoroughly enjoyed just talking to the booth and the people in the booths that were making the art. Let alone then you had the art themselves, the art itself, excuse me, that you can enjoy. So like the whole like, oh yeah, help create community. Yeah, it actually was a thing.
That's one of the things we're trying to focus on, and we've gotten. This is our third year, and we've expanded our planning team. We have some long-term goals, and one of them is to hopefully create this as a template, so then other archdioceses can be able to have their own Catholic Art Festival.
That'd be cool.
We aren't there yet. We're only a third year, and this is completely volunteer. We just became a nonprofit officially
what?
this year.
Really?
Yeah. So we're officially a
That's
nonprofit that helps with a bunch of different things when you're planning. But overall goal is to allow others to be able to experience this. We know there's communities like this in Chicago and other places around the United
really?
States.
I didn't even know. I thought this was like this is the first time I've ever been exposed to this experience.
As far as like festivals go, I'm not
Yeah.
sure if those communities have one, but as a community where artists can be able to collaborate, work with each
Yeah.
other, have exposure, just gather in our artistic community, we know those exist out there. We just don't know if there's events like this festival that we had planned.
Yeah.
So hopefully the goal is to make this a big evangelization event along with templatizing it and allowing others to share in this experience.
Yeah.
It's been a blessing. It's a lot of hard work. Definitely
Yeah.
got some burnout from that and recovering currently as we speak. But it's been something that's brought my faith even stronger. Those late nights when working and on the planning team, like I could go to bed right now.
Oh, that's rough.
I could definitely go to bed. But hey, there's a lot of people that are going to depend on this. But we've seen blessings. A marriage came out of Catholic Art Festival.
Oh, really?
Yes. One of the artists the first year had decided that a girl he was interested in, that he was going to, they've been seeing each other off and on.
Yeah.
To officially ask her to be her, to officially be in a relationship with her.
Okay.
And then year 2, that was when he decided he wanted to propose for her. So both those events kind of happened at the art festival.
Yeah.
And then in year 2, we found out that there were some people that were questioning in their sexuality and just confused in the whole confusion that we have in this world. And they were considering themselves non-binary. And through the art and the community they were able to experience,
That's so beautiful.
they wanted to find out more, and they joined in. And this is a college student. They joined in on Bible studies on the college campus, and then this individual was a girl, and decided that then I'm gonna identify as a girl, and started then becoming more of a feminine beauty that she is. And I got kind of updates within a few months and a few weeks afterwards, and it was beauty to hear that. And I've been finding these blessings and these miracles that have been happening.
That's so beautiful. Though, like it's not just like, hey, come spend your cash and grab something.
No,
it's actually like, hey, this is a Catholic community. You can come in and then be exposed to Catholic things, and then from that you can receive healing. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Obviously, we're not attending that, but we're excited and so happy that those are some of the blessings that happen.
Just a natural consequence of it.
Yes. On my planning to do task, I'm not saying have a marriage start, have a engagement, have a somebody that is identifying and questioning to be able to get clarity on that. That's not on my to-do list when planning.
No.
But to have those happen has been a blessing. So it's been amazing. We look to continue year 4, year 5, and continue on from here. And just encourage others that if you are creating art or you're inspiring artists or you appreciate art, to really support that in your community. We've been blessed to have some of those that then study in Rome and come back to St. Louis. Some of those artists actually work in Hollywood. They live in St. Louis and part of the community, but their work is focused in Hollywood.
Oh, that's wild.
And the amount of talent has been just amazing to see, and allowing the platform for them to be supported by their local community has been a blessing too.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Thank you. I'm glad we circled back and we got to talk a little bit about that. I didn't even realize that there's so many beautiful blessings that came out of the Catholic Art Festival that you had here, besides just being able to help artists live and sustain their life, and have people who wish to have beautiful sacred objects in their house have those things. Or coffee. There was coffee there as well. Those people were pretty cool.
I'll put a little bit of plug in there. That's Omen Coffee. They were able to sponsor us and provide free coffee. So we're very thankful to them.
Yeah, and what I thought was actually beautiful about that is like they weren't actually Catholic; they were a Christian organization,
Hmm.
and I was just like, oh, that's beautiful because we're not trying to exclude people here. You know, we're trying to celebrate a Christian fraternity and have that relationship within the community and support and connect people. So
Yep.
that
Yep.
was cool. Got to talk with them for a bit. They have a really cool ministry going on over there.
Yep. Very much so. And we've gotten questions on opening up beyond the Catholic faith and the Catholic community.
Mm-hmm.
And our starting was Catholic Art Festival, being
Yeah.
that's in the name. But based on the community and those that responded to it, we possibly will consider that in the future. We just want to make sure we create a quality event, and we don't want to expand too much without reducing, with making sure that our quality of the event and the experience stays at the high
Yeah.
caliber that we are focused on. So
Yeah. You want you want to be able to maintain what it is.
Yeah.
Without having losing that special element, because if it's now just an art festival and then everything is everything is within the festival, then it ceases to be what it is.
yeah, and
Yeah.
just a word of encouragement to anybody. This started because we saw a gap in what we saw in our community. Um, it wasn't that all of us had business degrees, or I came from a production background, so I knew how to handle events and logistics and planning. But I believe God specifically chose every individual, the four or five of us, in all our strengths and talents and different perspectives to create this festival. And we did it because we saw there was a gap and we had the opportunity to fill that gap. So for anybody that sees a gap in their community, whether that's young adult ministry, middle age ministry, youth ministry, whatever it is, usually priests and parishes are wanting people to take the own initiative to be able to create those ministries.
Yeah.
And I've heard this, and I very much agree with it, and I've seen this. If priests can just give you the okay and the blessing and don't have to do much, then they're 100% supportive of it. Like, if they don't have to take
Yeah.
any extra time and maybe just a little bit of advising here and there, usually that's great. So for anybody that had an idea of a ministry of some kind, led by a lady, get that idea going and ask people around you, because I'm sure you're not the only one that thinks that there needs to be that ministry or that goal or that intention or
Yeah.
that community.
That's funny you say that too, because like I remember back in college, we we wanted to get together and create like a fraternity for, not a fraternity like an actual fraternity, but create a group for guys, because we just, I don't know, Holy Spirit was just working. Like three guys after one mass came up to the deacon and asked for if we could start a group for guys, and like that way we could grow in our faith together. And after like the third person, he was like, okay, all right, Holy Spirit's here, we're gonna start it. And then it grew from 3 people to then 12 people and then 20 people, and then it got so big that we couldn't even be inside the room that
Wow.
we were at. So yeah,
Yeah.
talking about like how, if you want something and you see a gap in your community, like, yeah, like pray about it and see. But if you mention it to the priest and maybe you're that third person, and then the priest wants to help start this up, and it doesn't just affect you all, but it can have wide-reaching effects and be a positive for many people.
Very much so. And you might be the first person that is saying it, but there could be 10 other people that have already thought it and just
Yeah.
haven't had the thoughts to move forward with it. Or maybe they're scared because they feel like they can't plan it or do whatever it is. We're each given charisms from God,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
allowing those to shine through in the right place. And given some people are great at outreach and personal relationships. So allowing others that are outside of this new community to be able to brought in. Some people are good at administration work. Some people are good at planning. Some people are good at making food. Allowing people to share their charisma, their talent, their God-given
Yeah.
talent to make this community. We're one of our things was not food, but one of
Yeah.
our planning team members is a great cook and is going to host us at her house as a thank you to the overall
Nice.
community. And we're just blessed to be able to have somebody that, one,
Yeah.
is hosting us, but two, able to be a great cook. So
Yeah.
for everybody out there that is looking at creating ministry or finding a gap, like, talk to your people around you,
Yeah.
and don't let the age be a factor in division. Now, obviously, somebody that's 11 versus somebody that's 40 is going to have totally different
Yeah.
perspectives, but something that you can relate to. And then
Yeah.
I'm sure, even at the smallest scale, if that's just meeting in the parish basement
Yeah.
to be able to talk or to share, there's going to be some joy and fruit that comes out of that in my faith life.
So you're setting it up very nicely for the second topic here, which I've been asked to talk a little bit about Seek, and that's going to be the second half of this podcast. And we talked about having there are different resources you can go to when learning, and that it's good to have that community and that Catholic presence. So we have both attended Sikh, though we didn't go to the same ones. And I wanted to hear a little bit about your experience because it's a pretty cool thing, and I'll definitely put my own experience in there as well. But as far as one, like, what were your expectations from it, and then going through it, what did you think, and then coming on the outside of the conference, what did you think as well?
I was introduced to Sikh through Focus, the organization that puts on Sikh with missionaries that are here locally. We've got a few missionaries, so I was introduced through Focus through them, and then Sikh. So that's how I found about it, Sikh. And then, very thankfully, having the first Sikh that I ever attended being 20 minutes away from my house, just a quick drive to downtown and being able to experience that where I live was absolutely amazing. My expectations going into it, I've been on a few retreats beforehand, nothing on that size, and just a few 2 to 3 day retreats here in town.
It is massive.
It is so big. I love big crowds, big events, going to festivals and music festivals. I love that kind of energy and environment. So to me, it was going to be a Catholic music festival in a way. Even though it wasn't centered on music, it was still kind of the same energy, vibe, and kind of the expectation of going to meeting a lot of new people. The show floor, I forget what it was called there, but where they have all the vendors set up and the booths set up to be able to learn about the different colleges, different ministries all around the United States, even internationally too. That was a great experience. I didn't expect that. I didn't really know that was going to be there until I got there, and I spent multiple hours on that show floor just talking with people and knowing the different ministries.
Yeah, so it was really cool to me is seeing all the religious, because I did not come from a place like you. I came from a place where there were no religious. So the first time I saw it, I was like, whoa, this still exists?
Actually, yeah. I had a little bit of that myself, too. Like the monks that do the different hairstyle where they shave the top part of their head. And
wait, were there really people like that?
Yeah, where it had the circle of hair. And then,
the tonsure.
yes, that. I was like, that still exists? And they looked like what you would imagine in old books or writings or depictions. Like, I was like, I had the same experience, actually. Like, that still is around. That's amazing, and I need to learn more about that. Not that I'm going to go into it, but
I need to learn how to get that haircut. I
want
that haircut.
No. I will stick with my long locks. So,
it might help your current vocation in life.
So that was a great experience. But then going to the talks and all the different kind of presentations and the tracks they had was absolutely great.
Yes.
It could be overwhelming to be at something that size, and if you don't have a track, you have so many options, and in this world of we have all these options for all aspects of life, that could be overwhelming. So to have something there to direct you on a certain track, whether that is a college track, that is the non-college track, that is different tracks for marriage, for singlehood, for religious life, it was great to be able to see those to help out how am I going to get the best out of Sikh experience. So overall, it was awesome. Two stories that I have from it is the middle of Sikh with adoration evening. Having adoration in a stadium was a whole new experience to me. The most people I'd been around in adoration before that time was maybe 40 or 50 people. And then to be surrounded by thousands of people, and coming from a production standpoint, knowing everything that goes behind the scenes in that, when the monstrance was highlighted and the gold light was reflecting off that and all over the stadium, I also lost it and was a snobbing mess of just disgusting tears and snot of how beautiful of a moment this was. And then looking around, seeing other people crying and just in a gaze and awe of Jesus up highlighted in a stadium, that was a moment beyond beauty that I could ever experience. Never thought I would have that opportunity to experience. And that left me that night. I felt rejuvenated. I felt centered. I felt love again, similar to what I experienced that first communion.
So it's like that a renewal of your the faith experience.
Renewal, definitely a good description of that. That left me with while it's long days there, and thankfully I'm only 25 minutes away, but still that means at the end of the night,
that's rough.
I'm still 25 minutes away before going to sleep and then having to drive that back. So even in those long days, it was very much a renewal after that adoration night.
So you could say that Jesus took the wheel on the way back home, you know?
Yeah, completely. Very much in the tired sense of protecting me to make sure that there's no accidents that occur during that drive back.
So one thing I will say about St. Louis, because that's where the Seek was, driving, it's an adventure. Like, I was on the road 2 days ago, and then I was taking the off-ramp, off of the highway, and there was a car just kind of, like, parked halfway in the middle of the off-ramp. I was like, wow. It took me a second. I was just like, what is that? Something's not right. There shouldn't be something stopped right here. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I need to move or else I'm going to crash into that.
Yeah, if anybody else drives in St. Louis, just imagine a bunch of different towns and municipalities that had their own grid system set up, and they said, oh, we should connect with others, and nobody planned any of that out. So there are multiple intersections that are like 4 or 5 streets put together. And they come from not even perpendicular angles. They're all like weird angles, and they do like crazy U-turns. It's anyway. So
much like Sikh in the Catholic faith.
Yeah, a bunch of craziness, but you eventually find your way home through guidance of Jesus. So adoration was amazing. And the second story that I have, given it's a festival kind of environment, I decided that after seeing a few days of the schools and colleges where they had their flags there, and being able to quickly identify where your school is, where your group is, be able to have the flag waving around. I said, well, we don't have, from St. Louis, we don't have a college like it's everybody from the community. So we don't have a school flag. So coming from the festival world where you build totems, and totems is an identifier, tall pole usually with some kind of trinkets or something on it so you can identify your group at a festival. I said St. Louis needs to have one. So I used some of my audio gear and made a rig that was out of my backpack, and at the top of it was Jerry the Pig.
Oh my gosh.
It is a dog toy that squeaks, and then I colored it with some lights and everything like that, and come to find out that, well, Jerry the Pig became the friendliest pig / dog toy that was at Seek, and I allowed people, they always asked what it was, and then I got down on a knee to let them squeeze Jerry, and it created a lot of smiles. So anybody that squeezed Jerry the first time, I said, well, now you know Jerry, you can give him a squeeze as you pass by. So the last 2 days of Seek, there was just constantly people grabbing up to squeeze Jerry, and, you know, it allowed people to have a unique experience, some laughter, some smiles, to be able to walk away with Seek of like, do you remember that guy that had like a dog toy on a pole out of his backpack walking around squeezing it? And like, so I brought Jerry back the second year too, and some people remembered him. Yeah. So it was a good experience, and so overall, Seek was amazing, life-changing in essence of renewal for the faith and being on fire again. Like hopefully most people experience going to retreats. Just this being a very big experience overall, and meeting new friends and having outside this world experiences where Christ is really there with among these people, and the energy and the fire among these people and fire for their faith was just so impressive to be able to then leave with that too in your own heart.
Oh man, that's cool. So how was it after? Did you have like this kind of like crash where it's like, okay, I've been pushing my body, I'm super tired?
Sounds like you were there too.
Yeah.
Yes, I definitely had this crash. I took off the week of work so that way I could fully focus on Seek, and it felt like when you have a really good vacation and you're coming back home, you're glad like you can be able to relax a little bit, but at the same time you're a little bit sad of like, man, that was a really cool experience, and wish I had a little bit more time or a slower transition to be able to leave this experience. So it was kind of odd then coming back to work like nothing ever happened. All my coworkers just same old Monday, and for me, I'm like inside I'm jumping for joy for Christ and just having this amazing experience, but nobody around me knows that. And so it was interesting and odd, but it was that refresher that I think all of us need maybe on a yearly basis to get recharged in the faith and become on fire again, our hearts on fire for Jesus. So afterwards, I took a lot of that with me that I learned, and then hopefully wanted to start some young adult small groups to review the material, because those that couldn't make it, I figured would be very good for them to review the material that was available to us. Unfortunately, given the busy lives that young adults lead, none of that actually happened. It was intentional to make it, but didn't happen. So, but it was good. We made some closer ties and friends with out-of-town people and our own people in St. Louis, and then kind of gave me direction of what this year, since it's the very beginning of the year, moving forward in the rest of the year, how to be able to take the main theme of each year's Seek,
Yeah.
moving forward with that. And last year's theme was relating to people, and I guess this year in 2024, this year's theme was relating to people, and I've been very much practicing that. So whatever 2023's year was for theme, I was practicing that throughout the year too.
Yeah. So I actually had similar experiences as well, like the Giants communal adoration, where just like hundreds, maybe thousands of people, just wild, and the monstrance they had was just beautiful. And they actually at one point like brought out the heart of Saint John Vianney, and that was just a very powerful experience for me as well, where there's just a lot of healing, and it's beautiful because we talk about our faith as being true and real and it's spiritual, but it's not too often you get those experiences of actually being able to feel it's true, and having those mountaintop experiences. It's really beautiful because it kind of opens your eyes again to like, hey, yeah, I knew my faith is real, but man, I see it. I feel it's real. Also, I got to sit next to Scott Hahn and take a picture, so that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, kind of starstruck by some celebrities in the Catholic world that you see at Seek just walking around like every day.
Which is actually kind of funny because when I was going through school and high school, we would watch his DVDs. Or it was actually not his DVDs. I believe it was just the DVDs on the Bible. But we were watching them, and they were from Jeff Cavins. And then they put in a CD, and it wasn't Jeff Cavins. It was Dr. Scott Hahn. And I was like, who's this guy? I don't like him.
Little did you know.
Little did I know, like later on, I got to know about him more. I'm like, oh, this guy's actually amazing, and he's really good. And then I was like, oh, hey, yeah, that's the guy from the CD that I first complained about because we replaced the other guy that I was used to.
Irony there.
Yeah, irony indeed. So that was cool, and the talks too are actually very. I think it's really cool to be able not to go to just like one talk on a speaker that you enjoy, but it's like, oh, there's literally a day, and I have to choose between all these speakers that I want to listen to on very interesting topics.
Yeah,
where it's like, okay, it was just gonna get so much opportunity to listen to these people speak and like get to hear about them, like Father Mike Schmidt, Scott Hahn, Jeff Cavins, of course, all these people are there. I don't know about the new Seek lineup for 2025. I imagine they are there, but when I went, that was the case, and it's just like, wow, it's so cool to see these people in person and listen to them and get to hear these interesting talks, and then again another day later you have to make the same choices.
Yeah, it's very similar to music festivals where you got multiple stages and you got to choose who you're going to listen to. And in music festivals you can kind of maybe enjoy half of a set in one band and then move over to another one, enjoy half a set of the other one, and you don't have you're not missing out on anything. Like, sure, there may be some songs, but it's from song to song. There's nothing you're going to miss out on. Yeah. Going to talks, that's a little bit different because if you miss the introduction or how the story is laid out or set up, then, you miss the ending part of it, the closer, or you miss the beginning. So you got to kind of commit to making that schedule happen. And then, oh, hey, I saw that friend I haven't seen forever. And before you know it, we're talking for an hour, and I've already gotten halfway through that talk. And I'm like, well, do I continue talking to this friend, or do I try to make the last half? And all good things, though. All very good things.
There are many good choices that you have to make between many other good choices. So.
Yes. And then having the tracks they have, too, allows you to at least have more of a direction if you choose to do those tracks, so that way you're not overwhelmed with the options. And I'm very thankful that Seek has definitely set up those options and then made it for more open for non-college students, too, because it's very much a gem that whenever they did that, I'm so glad, because it allowed somebody like myself and other young adults in the community that are out of college to be able to experience that, even if we didn't experience, like I didn't experience in college. So my first Seek experience was way after college.
Yeah, you kind of get it, like, after college, you're just, like, you're no longer, like, important. Like, an important demographic in the sense of just, like, we have to try and, like, cater to these people and capture their attention. It's just like, yeah, you're kind of a young adult now. Yeah, do the thing.
Yeah, what does the thing mean? Like, do I get married right away? Do I first start a career to become stable and a good member of society? Do I practice my faith and then decide whether maybe religious life calls me? I don't know, but hey, figure it out by yourself. Like, no. We all need help with that.
Yeah, so it's I'm also glad I did get to go in college, but I am glad that they did open it up a little bit more so that more people can experience it. And because also too, like one great thing is like if you have a vocation where you're trying to decide between many good things, you can go talk with members of the communities, get contact information, and then one, you can immediately like get some understanding of what it is and what their lives look like, and then two, you can get content information for the future so that you can go and experience it in a deeper level, like to a come and see weekend where you maybe spend some time with the priory and then do some of the religious stuff that the religious do, or eat the religious food and see if you like religious food.
We did actually the last Seek this year's in 2024. The last day, one of my friends made friends with, I forget what the order is, but basically they travel around the United States, they beg for their food, and they basically hitchhike. Like they are living the devout poverty of life. And I wanted to give them some money for their next food, their next meal, and they said, sorry, we can't accept money. But if you got time, we can't accept a meal.
I can't accept the steak dinner that I really want.
Yes. But I didn't give him a steak dinner in the middle of the day. But what we did do, we walked a few minutes away from where Seek was hosted, and then I had an amazing meal with them and got to hear their stories and experiences. And I felt really blessed that God had given me the opportunity to meet these people of these order, have that time, and send them off with full, happy bellies before their next journey and being able to travel.
Thing.
So very unexpected, and you wouldn't have that opportunity unless you like seeked it out.
Yeah, seeked it out.
Yeah.
Really focusing on the conversation there, aren't you?
I see what you did there too.
So I think at this point in time, we're probably losing all our listeners now, if there's any more. So, but yeah, thank you for spending some of your day and letting me talk with you and getting to share. I hope we'll have some more of these in the future. And thank you all for listening to the podcast. If you've made it this far, you can please like and subscribe, whatever platform you're listening on, whether that's YouTube or if you're listening onto a podcast on any of the podcast apps that we have available. So thank you guys so much. Please subscribe and share the podcast and help us grow up because, we're still sort of growing the business here. So thank you. And once again, Garrison, thank you for letting me interview you and sharing your time with us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Happy to be on the podcast.
God bless. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Catholic Pleb podcast. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Just launched a locals channel, so if you want to engage more with us at the Catholic Plebs, then please join us there. It's going to be a platform where we share our meditations, we pose theological questions to one another, and share poetry. So if you're looking for some fraternal engagement that's based around the faith, then please join us there. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us on the various podcast platforms that we are available on, then please leave a review and help us grow the channel by sharing this podcast with other people. Thank you so much. God bless.